Hi there. I don't often show my face here on YouTube, but I feel like this video needs a little bit of context. So to answer the obvious question, the aspect ratio of this video is a little bit weird, and there's a good reason for that. When I first started doing the Pokemon Facts series, I exclusively did it on TikTok, and it's not until recently that I actually started putting them up on YouTube. And obviously the aspect ratio on TikTok is a lot different than here on YouTube. So with that being said, this video is best suited for mobile devices. Now what is this video? This video is basically a mega compilation of all the Pokemon facts that I have covered over the last year. Every single fact in this video should be up to date as of making this video, and I'm not done editing yet, but I have counted around 350 to 400 Pokemon facts. And once I am done talking, the facts will just begin. I'm going to edit down and edit out all of the dead space, like the numberation and all of that stuff, so it's just going to be pure Pokemon facts for at least a couple of hours. But to end things off, I just want to say thank you all so much for 500 subscribers. I was going to make this video anyways, but I did not expect to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the year. I really did not, but you smashed it, so here we are. Now for 2024, I am going to try to edit down all of the TikToks in the correct aspect ratio so that the bigger videos that I upload will actually be enjoyable for you to watch. I do appreciate all the support that I've been getting both on YouTube and on TikTok. I did not expect to reach these kind of numbers at all, at any point. So thank you all so much for that, and I hope you had a great Christmas and a great New Year's, and let's get into the video. Today we're going to be talking about the most hilarious ban in the history of competitive Pokemon. A Pokemon can be banned for different reasons. Maybe it's considered too powerful, maybe it's the lack of accessibility, or maybe the Pokemon has a busted move that puts both opposing Pokemon to sleep with 80% accuracy, so they ban the entire Pokemon but don't follow up on banning the move, so we have to deal with this little pussy. Regardless, my point is there are a number of reasons why a Pokemon can be banned. And this Pokemon wasn't just banned from something like OU, like Wobbuffet. This Pokemon was banned by Pokemon themselves. This Pokemon was banned from online use and most notably, the 2013 World Championship. So what Pokemon was so absurdly strong that it was banned from the World Championships? Well, it was Chatot. At first glance, Chatot doesn't seem very good, and it isn't. It has lackluster abilities, not a very good typing, not very good stats, and it doesn't really learn any good moves aside from like Parting Shot. The reason why it was banned was because of its signature move, Chatter. In Generation 4 and 5, Chatter was a base 60 flying type move with a 1% chance to confuse the target. But back then, Chatter was also a field move, and you could power up Chatter by screaming into the microphone of the DS. As you do. This would make Chatter go from 1% to 31% chance to confuse the target. But there was another effect of doing this. And this is where Pokemon effectively shat themselves. You see, if you screamed into the microphone to boost Chatter, your scream would be recorded as the sound for Chatter. So instead of Chatot's normal cry when it used to move Chatter, it would be you screaming into oblivion. Which leads us to the ban. Chatot was absolutely banned from competitive play, because Chatter could be used to spread offensive language, making it the first Pokemon ever to be banned for not being PG. So when I made the Chatot TikTok, a lot of you guys thought I was going to talk about Purrloin and Liepard, and they for sure deserve their own video. So let's talk about all the times that these two Pokemon became absolute menaces to society. Being introduced in Gen 5, Purrloin and Liepard were in a very unique situation. First of all, they had the hidden ability Prankster. The Prankster ability gives a +1 priority to all status moves or moves that don't do damage. What made Purrloin a problem is the fact that it also had access to the move Assist. What Assist does is that it uses a move known by a Pokemon in your party. The first issue that appeared with Liepard and Purrloin was that people would use the move Assist to spam the move Roar, effectively throwing the opponent in and out of battle. If you're wondering why people would do this, it's the same reason as why kids shoot each other in the eyes with rubber bands. Because it's funny, but that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Purrloin and Liepard. Which leads us to the hilarious Dive Cats, which took this to a whole new level. As previously stated, Purrloin and Liepard has the ability Prankster and the move Assist, but there was another thing that these Pokemon also had access to. That being the items Lagging Tail and Full Incense. Lagging Tail and Full Incense are items that are sometimes used to competitive Pokemon and always used with the move Trick, to give the item to your opponent because of how bad it is. The effect of holding these items is that it ignores the speed stat and puts you last in your priority bracket. This means that even if you are faster than your opponent, you will still go last if you use the move that has the same priority as your opponent. But why on earth would this item be good on Purrloin and Liepard? Well, I'll tell you. Even though it puts you last in your priority bracket, it takes priority into account. Meaning that if Purrloin is holding the lagging tail, Assist will still go before most moves because Prankster still gives it a +1 priority. So what people would do is combine this with the move Dive. Because Dive is a 2-turn move, Prankster would give priority to Assist, making it go first. But because Dive does damage, Prankster no longer gives it priority on the next turn. And because you are holding the lagging tail, Dive will go last. Which in turn means that if you have no priority moves, Purrloin and Liepard would be impossible to hit unless you had moves such as Surf or Whirlpool. What makes this even more hilarious is that this was used in double battles, because Full Incense and Lagging Tail does the same thing and are different items. So you could lead Purrloin and Liepard and have 2 Pokemon in the back that knows Dive, and they would both be able to use Assist, Dive, and be invincible. Even if you weren't able to knock out your opponent's Pokemon, you could still win because of Timer, because you had more HP because they can't hit you. Which is why Assist was banned in Gen 5 OU. Liepard made another appearance online in Generation 6, where they would have a Smeargle in the back to get priority Dark Void. Which is just another reason as to why I think this thing deserves to get its neck broken by a Tombstone Piledriver. If you thought that it couldn't get any worse, you would be right. Because Gen 9 happened. And it didn't just get worse, it got way worse. Even though Liepard and Purrloin are not available in Scarlet and Violet, they were allowed in a category called National Dex. And once again, Prankster Assist was back at it. However, this time it was using the move Revival Blessing. You see, Revival Blessing typically only has 1 PP as a way to balance it out. But Assist doesn't use the PP of the move it assists. Meaning that instead of 1 Revival Blessing, you'd have 32. And do you know what move doesn't get picked by Assist? Destiny Bond. So here's what happened. You would have 3 Pokemon with Prankster Assist. Purrloin, Liepard, and now Meowstic. Of course it's another cat. All 3 of which knows Assist alongside a Pokemon with Revival Blessing. And then what you can do is have a Pokemon with max speed and a Choice Scarf with Destiny Bond that could be revived over and over and over again. And yet again, just like Gen 5 OU, Assist was banned from Gen 9 National Dex. But I'm saying right now, they're coming back. Somehow, some way, they will be back. Someone asked me to make this video a long time ago, and it's finally here. In this video, I will tell you about the life and creations of one of the most important people in the Pokemon franchise, Takeshi Shudo. But before I do, fair warning, this video will talk about alcohol and substance abuse. If you're not okay with that, then I'm sorry, but this video is not for you. Takeshi Shudo was the chief writer for Pokemon from the start of the show until 2002. With episode 244 being his last work on Pokemon. He was the writer who started everything. And a piece of fun fact not everyone knows, he actually created Team Rocket. And he made them with more complex personalities to tailor to adults. And at this point in his life, he was just a man doing his job. Until one of, if not the biggest tragedy in Pokemon took place. The horrifying Porygon episode. You may have thought that this was just some creepypasta or fake stuff, but this actually happened. During what was a normal episode, strong flashing lights would appear, sending over 700 people to the hospital with seizures. Pokemon had no idea how to deal with this situation, and many believing that this was the end for Pokemon. However, Shudo saw an opportunity and took it. The first Pokemon movie. You see, this situation allowed Shudo to write the first movie the way he wanted, with a darker story and a deeper plot. Shudo himself even said that if it wasn't for the circumstances, they would have never allowed him to do it. But he did, and it was a huge success, possibly saving the entire franchise. And this also gave him almost full creative freedom in the second movie. There's a lot I can say about the second movie. For example, how Shudo wanted to write Ash out of the story. But I think the topic of Lugia and what followed is what is really relevant here. Because of his freedom, Shudo decided to create Lugia, or as he called it, Pokemon X, which was also referenced in the anime. Lugia was his crown jewel, a creation that for him went beyond Pokemon. According to him, it was a symbol of life, but also coexistence. A maternal Pokemon. Even though it is believed that he took inspiration from Ryujin, a god in the Japanese mythology, he viewed Lugia as a female and being exclusive to the movie. This is also backed up by a hacker who released a demo for the Gen 2 games where Lugia was missing, because it was never intended to be in the games in the first place. But Lugia did make it into the games, and not only that, it was given a male voice actor. it might be difficult for fans and consumers of the franchise to understand what this actually did to Shudo, which is why I will read it in his own words that was translated from his blog. One of the regrets I had about writing the second movie was that I didn't push back on the gender assigned to Lugia. Although its gender isn't addressed in the plot, it's given a male voice. It's a maternal Pokemon. To make matters worse, using a male voice actor for Lugia was a decision made during a big meeting with many participants. Advertisements had already aired, it was too late. I was gulping alcohol and drugs and started to feel like I wanted to die. But sadly, this wasn't the first time. We learned in other blog posts from Shudo that has been translated that sadly, he was drinking way before this. He would abuse legal tranquilizers and be intoxicated while writing not just the second movie, but also the first, and the third, and the anime itself. Shudo had many demons. At one point he was even hospitalized because of his obsession with trying to find a way to make the series last as long as the producers wanted. And he wanted to end the series multiple times, already in the first movie and in the anime. The ending in the first movie even included Ash looking back at his journey as an adult, only to wake up again in the next morning as a kid, not to catch Pokemon, but to discover the meaning of existence and how to coexist with others. Another ending included the Pokemon rebelling in some sort of war against their trainers. The original script for the third movie was also entirely different. It had dinosaurs in it. And as much as Shudo loved to talk about his work, we may never know what he had originally planned for the third movie. Because on October 29th, 2010, Takeshi Shudo collapsed, suffering a subarachnoid hemorrhage often caused by smoking and alcohol abuse, leading many to believe that the demons he had were even bigger than we realized. However, to end things off, Shudo was credited in the 2017 movie I Choose You, as he was the writer for the very first episode, as well as the 2019 remake of Mewtwo Strikes Back, which of course he also wrote. I know that the subject for this video is a little bit darker than what I normally do, but I feel like the Takeshi Shudo story is an incredible story and I have wanted to share it for a long time, so I hope you enjoyed.
I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are.
Let's talk about 2 times the Pokemon anime could have ended and how. With Ash's journey finally coming to an end, I thought it would be cool to look back at some of the earlier plans for the end of the Pokemon anime. And this is not about fan theories or speculation. This comes straight from the words of Takeshi Shudo. He was the chief writer for the Pokemon anime and single-handedly wrote both the first and second Pokemon movies, alongside being co-writer for the third. And I'll be reading directly from translated parts of his blog posts. What I'm trying to say is, this comes from one of the most reliable sources we could possibly have. The man who wrote it. But first, shout out to all of you who knew the answer to the bonus image of the AI quiz. It was Cherubi. The first original ending that Shudo had planned for Pokemon actually came in the very first movie. It is worth noting that because of the events of the Porygon episode, Shudo had a lot of room to work with, even stating that if the Porygon incident didn't happen, he would have never been allowed to make it the way he did. However, he was not in complete control. Here is how he actually planned the movie to end, dated May 14th, 2009. Months and years pass. Ash grows old. Then one day he suddenly looks back on his past. He remembers his childhood fondly, the adventures he had with his amazing Pokemon, the friendship, the coexistence. Maybe Ash wasn't able to experience these things later in life. However, as a kid, there was Pikachu and a lot of other Pokemon. Jessie and James, and Mewtwo, and so much more. Elderly Ash remembers everything that happened during his adventures as a young boy. He can hear his mother's voice. "Go to sleep already. You're setting off on your journey tomorrow." The next morning, he is woken up by his mother as a young boy again, leaving his house, excited to start a new adventure. He is going on a journey not to catch Pokemon or become a Pokemon master, but to discover the meaning of existence, to discover how to coexist with others. But Shudo also had a plan for the ending of the anime, which he said he would have used for the fourth movie if he ever wrote one. Dated May 19th, 2010. I thought about writing a fourth movie, but I couldn't come up with any ideas. If I wrote it, I would have used the story that I planned for the final episode of the anime. The Pokemon would stage a rebellion, much like Spartacus in ancient Rome. Although at first glance Pokemon appeared to be friends with humans, they would realize that they were actually being used like slaves, which would lead to an uprising. Pikachu would become the leader of the revolt and end up fighting with Ash. Team Rocket, who are in the possession of a lot of sinister Pokemon, including Meowth, who can translate the Pokemon language into human speech, would try to mediate the conflict, but they would do a poor job of interpreting and only make things worse. That's all I came up with. However, an episode like that would break the rules of the Pokemon world and make it impossible for the series to continue. Continuing into perpetuity is the series' objective. If it could be produced, I think it would literally have to be the last episode ever. I tried to think of a different plot, but I couldn't. So there you have it, and I want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Lava, who's done a lot of work having Shudo's blog posts translated. And a question for you people in the comments: are you satisfied with the ending of Ash's journey? And if not, how would you have ended it? When Gligar evolves into Gliscor, it almost doubles in height, but it loses over 56 pounds. Did you know, not all starter Pokemon share the same base stat total? As a matter of fact, not counting special forms like Ash Greninja or Mega Evolutions, Swampert has the highest base stat total of all starter Pokemon at base 535, 1 point ahead of Charizard, Typhlosion, and Infernape. While we're on the topic of starter Pokemon, only 3 starter Pokemon has ever won the World Championship in the Masters division of VGC. That being, of course, Incineroar multiple times, but most recently in 2022, and Rillaboom, also in 2022, and Empoleon in 2009. The Pikachu and Eevee you receive in Let's Go are not the traditional versions of these Pokemon. They're actually way stronger. And I am not talking about the strong signature moves that they both get, or the fact that they're both 6 IVs. Here's the base stat of a normal Pikachu. And here's the stats of the Pikachu in the Let's Go game. Again, here's Eevee, and here's the Let's Go Eevee. They both get an additional 110 extra stats to their base stat total. Through the years, I have seen tons of people talking about what the worst shiny Pokemon are. And there's one that stands out to me that very few people know about. This is Magearna, and this is Magearna's shiny form. But see, that wasn't always the case. Magearna's old shiny form looked like this. Can you tell the difference? No? That's because there is none. Prior to Generation 8, Magearna's shiny form was the exact same as its normal form. Coughing and Wheezing were originally named NY and LA, short for Los Angeles and New York, representing their pollution. Speaking of Wheezing, Galarian Wheezing learns more moves and knocks itself out than any other Pokemon. These moves include Self-Destruct, Explosion, Memento, and Misty Explosion. In Pokemon X and Y, if you try to take a taxi in Lumiose City but don't have any money, the taxi driver will force you into a Pokemon battle. The Hoenn region was based on the Japanese island of Kyushu. Junichi Masuda's grandparents lived in Kyushu, and after visiting them as a child, he wanted to express his childhood and the abundance of nature. Did you know that Pokemon Crystal had online play? In the Japanese versions of Pokemon Crystal, in Goldenrod City, the Pokemon Center had the Pokemon Communication Center, and by using a device called the Mobile Adapter GB, you could connect a phone to the Game Boy, allowing you to access the internet, and this allowed players to trade Pokemon and battle each other nationwide. It was also compatible with Pokemon Stadium 2, and what's even crazier is that there was DLC, most notably the GS Ball, which you use to unlock Celebi. You can obtain an illegal Electrode in Pokemon Red and Blue, and it wasn't changed in Fire Red and Leaf Green, so you can do it there as well. By catching a level 3 Pikachu in Viridian Forest and trading it for an Electrode on Cinnabar Island, you'll end up with a level 3 Electrode, because the Pokemon you trade will always have the same level as the one you receive. Grusha, the Ice-type gym leader in Scarlet and Violet, that's a dude. I'm primarily adding this fact to freak out all the people that have been drawing wild, and I mean wild, fan art of this character. But yeah, it's a dude, but hey, love is love and we don't discriminate over here. This comment mentions a Taillow that you can get from a Pokemon theme park. And this is true. There was a Pokemon theme park that opened for just 4 months in Japan. And if you brought your Game Boy to said park, you could get a special Pokemon through an egg. Though it's not your typical overpowered Pokemon, but you could receive a Pichu with the move Follow Me, an Igglybuff with the move Tickle, and the Feather Dance Taillow. And as the comment also states, they could be shiny, which is also correct. Though the likelihood of one of these existing is very small, it is a possibility, and that would make it one of the rarest shinies ever. Pokemon Stadium 2 alongside Conker's Bad Fur Day and Resident Evil 2, are the largest games on the N64, each with a file size of, brace yourselves, 64 megabytes. Now I know that this fact seems like one of those, like, well, that's just stupid, why even include it? But I think it's wild to think about the fact that the games that we grew up with and loved are now the size of Fortnite skins. In Generation 1, this video plays before the game, and it stays the same in Fire Red and Leaf Green, and it also made an appearance in the very first episode of the anime. But what's a little weird is that there are people out there who remember this differently. See, the Gengar and Nidorino fight is something everyone remembers. Unless, of course, you played Pokemon Blue. Because in Pokemon Blue, there is no Nidorino. The battle is between a Gengar and a Jigglypuff. The odd egg is a gift you receive in Pokemon Crystal, and it has a chance to contain one of these Pokemon. However, what makes this egg special is that it has increased shiny odds. Outside of Japan, you have a 14% chance of the egg being shiny. But in the Japanese versions of the game, the egg will be shiny 50% of the time. Sticking to Gen 2, here are two pictures from the Generation 2 games. Can you tell which is real? If you said both, you're actually correct. The Surfing Lapras actually changes color depending on what gender you picked for your character in the beginning of the game. In the Japanese versions of the game, Blue is the only gym leader who shares his name with his gym badge. This might be a little bit confusing, but in Japanese, the Earth badge is actually called the Green badge, and Blue's name in the Japanese games is actually Green. The Cherish Ball is most commonly used in the distribution of event Pokemon, which are more often than not legendaries and mythicals. However, the first event Pokemon ever distributed in a Cherish Ball was actually Tropius. There's also a possible reference to this, as an NPC named Diana actually has a Cherish Ball Tropius in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. We're actually going to stay with the Cherish Ball for this. As I mentioned earlier, the Cherish Ball is primarily used for event Pokemon, and it cannot be obtained in the game legitimately. However, if you were to get your hands on a Cherish Ball illegitimately, it works in the same way as a Pokeball, except for in Platinum. See, in Pokemon Platinum, the only way to obtain the Regitrio of Regirock, Registeel, and Regice was that you had to have a specific event Regigigas in your game. If you had this event Regigigas, the other three would become available. And if you didn't get it, you couldn't catch them in your game legitimately. However, there is a non-legitimate way, which is pretty wild. See, if you were able to use a cheating device in Platinum and give yourself a Cherish Ball, and you used that Cherish Ball to capture the in-game Regigigas, the game would mess up and read this Regigigas as the event one. Meaning that if you caught Regigigas in a Cherish Ball, the Rock Peak, Iceberg, and Iron Ruins would automatically be accessible. However, the issue in order to obtain that Regigigas is that you already needed to have the trio to unlock it, which makes this all very confusing. This comment mentions how weird it is to evolve Galarian Yamask into Runerigus. And, well, it's weird for sure. In order to evolve Galarian Yamask, you have to take it into battle, and it has to lose 49 HP or more in a single hit. And then you have to bring Yamask to the Dusty Bowl, and find this weird stone bridge, walk under it, and Yamask evolves. Smeargle is the only Pokemon to learn the same move by level up more than 4 times. As a matter of fact, Smeargle can only learn that one move by level up. It learns Sketch 10 times by level up. James Turner is a designer for Pokemon and has designed multiple different Pokemon. But in an interview, he stated that his favorite Pokemon is Salandit. Morelull is the only Pokemon to have the Rain Dish ability without being able to learn Rain Dance, but it does learn Sunny Day. We all know that PETA has had a lot to say about Pokemon, especially when it comes to animal cruelty. However, did you know that PETA actually made a Pokemon game? Well, they actually made 2. Pokemon Black and Blue, and Pokemon Red, White, and Blue. And you can still play these games on a browser linked to the official PETA website. It starts off with a hurt Pikachu battling Cheren, who beats it with a baseball bat. And well, I can't even show you everything because this TikTok will actually be taken down. As 3 minutes into the game, I unlocked a video of animals genuinely being hurt with no warning. With that being said, I have to mention that I do not support the spreading of these videos and that this TikTok is solely made for educational purposes. You can make of this what you will. Ditto and Manaphy are the only Pokemon that are able to breed, but unobtainable through breeding, though the Manaphy egg does exist in multiple games. One of you guys left a comment saying that Archeops has the same base stat total as his Pokedex number, and it does. its base stat total is 567 and its national dex number is 567. It's also the only Pokemon with the base stat total of 567. There are 9 different type combinations that are yet to be used in Pokemon. These combinations include Normal Rock, Normal Bug, Normal Steel, Normal Ice, Poison Ice, Ground Fairy, Rock Ghost, Bug Dragon, and Fire Fairy. In Generation 7, Dhelmise could learn the move Attract. However, Dhelmise is categorized as genderless, meaning that Attract works in the same way that Splash does, and it does absolutely nothing. This is Blaziken. However, its beta art looked very different. Its pre-alpha sketch actually looked like this, with a lot of similarities to Latios. It's often referred to as Latiosiken or Latican, but it's not confirmed what changed the design or if it was used to make Latios. But the design does raise a lot of questions. Several of Electros' Pokédex entries states that it can use its fangs to shock its prey with electricity. However, it could not learn Thunderfang until Generation 9. In an interview, Ken Sugimori revealed that Tornadus was supposed to be red, to be paired with Thundurus blue, but the color was changed to green because the pair ended up looking too similar to Throw and Sock. According to Bulbapedia, Clang is the only non-legendary or mythical from Generation 5 to not make a debut in the main series anime. There's a total of 5 Pokemon with palindromic names, which means that the name is read the same when you read it front to back and back to front. This includes Girafarig, Farigiraf, Ho-Oh, Eevee, and Alomomola. In a 2008 interview with Masamitsu Hidaka, who was the director and storyboard artist for Pokemon, revealed that the GS Ball was supposed to contain a Celebi that would be used throughout the Johto series. However, this never happened, and they decided to use Celebi in the Voice of the Forest movie, which means that to the best of my knowledge, the GS Ball is stuck with Kurt. However, the GS Ball did have a use in the games, specifically Pokemon Crystal, and it could be used to summon a level 30 Celebi. The GS Ball was also mentioned by an NPC in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and when translated directly from Japanese, it's called the Gold Silver Ball, which is probably a reference to the Gold and Silver games. Scyther evolves into Scizor, but they have the same stat total at base 500. Gyarados' original design was not supposed to look like this. Its original artwork was supposed to resemble a leech-like creature with no eyes. Out of all fully evolved Pokemon with evolutions, the lowest special attack is surprisingly Mega Beedrill at 15. This one's kinda cool, and if you have a physical copy of Pokemon Sword and Shield, you can do this right now. By holding the box art in front of Google Lens, it will actually start to play a video. Firefang bypasses Wonder Guard. This one sounds like complete BS, but just hear me out. In Generation 4, there was a coding bug, which made Firefang hit Pokemon with Wonder Guard no matter what. Now I know what you're thinking. Wonder Guard is exclusive to Shedinja, who is weak to fire. Of course Firefang will hit. Probably the most popular is Spiritomb, which has no weaknesses in Gen 4, but it can still be hit by Firefang. So how many of these did you know about? Let me know in the comments, and do you have any weird or interesting Pokemon facts? Let me know. This one's a little shorter than normal. I'm currently moving, so I'm sorry. I have to make them kind of fast. In Generation 2, we got a lot of new Pokeballs. However, 3 of them did not work as intended. The Love Ball is supposed to give you a higher catch rate when used on Pokemon of the opposite gender, but instead it gives a higher catch rate on Pokemon of the same gender. The Fast Ball is supposed to give a higher catch rate to Pokemon that can escape, but it only works for Tangela, Grimer, and Magnemite. And probably the funniest of all, the Moon Ball is supposed to give a higher catch rate to Pokemon that evolves with the Moonstone. But the game is coded to be based on items, so instead of working on Pokemon that evolves with the Moonstone, it only works on Pokemon that evolves with the Burn Heal. This one comes from a comment saying that in Generation 1, Bug was weak to Poison, meaning that Parasect was quad weak to 3 different typings. Bug was extremely similar to Grass in Generation 1, and this is true. Pokemon Sun and Moon were the first Pokemon games to ever be released in Chinese. Spiritomb is very associated with the number 108, which is a reference to the number of temptation one must overcome to reach Nirvana in Buddhism. And I mean, it really likes the number 108. Several Pokédex entries states that it was formed from 108 spirits. Its Sinnoh Pokédex number is 108. Its defense and special defense is 108. It weighs exactly 108 kilograms. In Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, it's located on Route 108. In Pokemon Go, you encounter it at the end of a special research. involving feeding 108 berries to your Pokemon and using 108 catching berries. In Legends Arceus, it's encountered at the end of a quest, where the player must gather 108 wisps. Also, to answer another comment just for the fun of it, alongside Sableye, they were the only Pokemon with no weaknesses excluding abilities until Generation 6. Diamond Dust. In almost every Pokemon game, we have Diamond Dust. It looks like snow with little white balls falling from the sky. Diamond Dust was first introduced in Generation 4 and only appears on certain days. This includes Junichi Masuda's birthday, New Year's Eve, your birthday, and so on. Here's a list of all the days and where you can find Diamond Dust throughout the games, and also why it's there. And I think it's a cool little Easter egg. Generation 6 introduced fairy types, but they also introduced an item called the Fairy Gem, which is a one-time use item that boosts the power of fairy type moves by 30%. What's really weird about this is the fact that even though it came in Generation 6 and has existed for over 10 years, it's never actually been obtainable in any game legitimately. Did you know that there are multiple uncatchable shinies in the games? Most notably the Poochyena and Ralts from Generation 3. Well, you probably knew that, but did you know that Wally's Ralts actually appeared shiny in a live stream? Pokemon speedrunner Verster actually ran into one, and I'll just let you watch the clip.
Are you kidding me? He found a shiny Ralts! Are you kidding me?
In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, if you go to Cyanwood City and release all of your Pokemon except one and it doesn't have Surf or Fly, there's an NPC that will give you a Tentacool. The reason why this happens is to prevent your game from being softlocked, meaning that you can't proceed in the game. And this went undiscovered for 11 years. One of the few version differences in Pokemon games are the version exclusives. For example, Violet gets Bagon, Scarlet gets Larvitar, as well as the Paradox Pokemon. However, there was one time, and one time only, where two version exclusive Pokemon swapped places. Teddiursa and Ursaring can only be found in the Japanese and Korean versions of Pokemon Silver, with Phanpy and Donphan only being in the Japanese and Korean versions of Gold. However, in every other release of Gold and Silver since then, Teddiursa and Ursaring are found in Gold and Phanpy and Donphan are found in Silver. As a little side note, the remakes of these games actually follows the Japanese version, meaning that after they were flipped, they got flipped back in the remakes. Pokeball is one of the most well-known pieces from Pokemon, with the red and white ball being the most recognizable. However, the first Pokeball ever seen in the anime, not counting the intro, was not red. It was green. There is a lot of Easter eggs hidden throughout the Pokemon games and the anime, but this is easily one of my favorites. Some of you may not view it as an Easter egg, you might view it as a cameo, which it is. In the 2017 movie titled I Choose You, there is a battle on the TV between two trainers with a Blastoise and a Venusaur. What's really cool about this is that this is actually Corey and Nisha, who first appeared with Blastoise and Venusaur in the very first movie 17 years earlier. Well, this one's just hilarious to me, I don't know why. One of Delibird's regular abilities is Vital Spirit, which prevent the Pokemon from falling asleep. Now, if you're really lucky, you might get one with this hidden ability, Insomnia, which prevents the Pokemon from falling asleep. The Dragon type has been paired with every single typing, except for one, and it's Bug, which kinda sucks because both Yanmega and Flygon would have been really cool. I previously covered that Rampardos has the highest attack stat of any Pokemon if we exclude Ultra Beasts, Mega Evolutions, and Legendaries. But with that being said, which one has the highest special attack under the same conditions? It's actually a three-way tie between Chandelure, Vikavolt, and Cursula. However, what makes this really cool is that another one used to have a higher special attack than all of them, that being Blade Form Aegislash, who used to have a base 150 in Generation 6 and 7, but in Generation 8 it was dropped to 140. The nation of Niue had a $1 coin with Pikachu on it to promote the Pokemon franchise, and it was a legal form of currency. If we exclude Legendaries, Ultra Beasts, and Mega Evolutions, the highest attack stat of any regular Pokemon is Rampardos, at base 165. Lugia was only made for the second movie. Takeshi Sudo, who is the guy who made Lugia, was actually surprised when Lugia found its way into the games. Shudo also did a lot of work for the Pokemon anime, and has stated that one of his biggest regrets was actually the voice of Lugia, as when he created Lugia, he had visioned that it would be a female. This led to a lot of personal problems throughout his life, but that's a story for another day, and you're free to read up on it. The e-reader was a piece of equipment released for the Game Boy Advance that used to scan specific Pokemon cards. And there's a big chance you had these cards growing up. You would swipe these cards on the e-reader to unlock certain items in Pokemon Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Emerald. This included things such as special battles, minigames, berries, and more. Two of the biggest and rarest e-reader cards included the Eon Ticket to allow you to catch Latios or Latios, the Japanese exclusive Regidolls for secret bases, and there are a lot more rare cards for the e-readers such as the Kirby card, but I decided not to cover these because they're not really Pokemon related. Even though the e-reader was very popular in Japan, it overall kind of failed, and was only released in Japan, North America, and Australia. Europe never even got to see it. However, the cards were released. We know that Gimmighoul is a pain to evolve, needing 999 coins. But to evolve Inkay, you have to level it up to level 30 while holding your console upside down. And if you don't believe it, that's fine. I just hope you don't end up with a level 100 Inkay holding a Master Ball like someone I knew did. Galarian Moltres, Altered Giratina, Dragonite, and Groudon all have one thing in common. They share the same special attack stat as Roselia at base 100. Have you ever seen this place? The vast majority of players never did, and you are very unlikely to see it again. It is located on Route 130 in Pokemon Sapphire, Ruby, and Emerald. The odds of it appearing is 1 in over 65,000. Rarer than both Pokéross and shiny Pokemon. However, it does drastically improve if you have 6 Pokemon in your party. An old man at the southeastern hut in Pacific Log Town will tell the player whether or not they can see Mirage Island, and it resets every day. So what's the big deal about Mirage Island? Well, in today's world, nothing. All it has is a bunch of Wynots and 1 Lychee Berry. However, back then Lychee Berry had another effect that we don't see in today's game, as it would provide you with gold Pokeblocks for the contests, and this was the only place you could pick one. Well, that is, unless there was another way of getting a Lychee Berry, but it's very hard to believe. In Generation 3, there was a patch, an update of sorts, to fix a glitch with the in-game clock. However, the Game Boy had no online connectivity. How it worked back then is that you put the patch into the new cartridge and then sell the new cartridge. But if you had a copy that didn't have the patch, you could update it with a copy of Fire Red, Leaf Green, or Emerald, and a link cable. The instructions on exactly how to do it is kind of long, but you can find it on Bulbapedia. And would you believe if I told you that if you did this, the game would give you a shiny Zigzagoon if you had an open spot in your party, holding a Lychee Berry. Process was also something that Nintendo offered to do for you if you sent them the game. They would just send it back to you with the update, and kept offering this until August of 2012, way after the game's life cycle. Dodrio loves having 3 of things: 3 heads, 3 lungs, 3 hearts. It also used to have 3 toes as well, but somehow it gained one in the newer generations. It still also has 3 dicks. This one's a little interesting to me, and I don't really have too much to say about it, but it's cool, so I'll add it anyway. The second fastest any % speedrun of Pokemon Crystal is in 11 minutes and 18 seconds by Pokeguide. But the world record is almost twice as fast and has stood for over 3 years. In Generation 3 competitive Pokemon, only 1 non-legendary Pokemon was deemed too good and was put in the Ubers category. It was Wobbuffet. There was a bug in the original Generation 1 games where if you used an X accuracy, the game would completely skip checking accuracy, making one-hit KO moves like Horndrill, which normally only hits 30% of the time, hit 100% of the time. Only 1 Pokemon has no weaknesses in the form of super effective hits, and it's Eelektross, because of its levitate ability. Even though Eelektross has no natural weaknesses, there are 2 evolution lines in 1 Pokemon who can also have no weaknesses by making themselves typeless. These Pokemon are the Typhlosion line, the Arcanine line, and Tepig. By using the move Burn Up, it removes their fire typing. This one is interesting, only because of how weird it sounds outside of competitive Pokemon. So if you know competitive Pokemon, you probably know about this, but if you don't, it's a huge head scratcher. This is Clefable. Clefable has no official tournament first placements in the VGC, and that's counting regionals, nationals, and world championships. It's had a few good placements, but it's never actually won anything. What makes that very weird to most people is that Clefairy has won 3 regional championships. On top of that, it finished top 10 at the 2018 World Championships. And it's been used by several great players such as Seijun Park and Brandon Seng. So that begs the question, why? Well, the reasoning is actually surprisingly good. First of all, Clefairy is a fairy type, making it immune to normally very offensively strong dragon types. It has access to moves such as Encore, Helping Hand, formerly Life Dew, and most importantly, Follow Me. Clefable has all of that too, right? But what Clefable doesn't have is Clefairy's ability Friend Guard, which in double battles is an incredible ability, making your ally take 25% less damage from incoming attacks. But there's more. Clefairy isn't fully evolved. meaning that it can use the item Eviolite, boosting its defense and special defense, which actually makes Clefairy bulkier than Clefable. The common idea is that evolved means better, but that's just not always the case. Just like Clefairy, we see it very often with Pokemon like Porygon 2. This one actually comes from one of you guys who left a comment. Sebastian told us that Gastly can learn the move Fire Punch, despite having no arms. But it's not just Fire Punch, it can also learn Sucker Punch, Thunder Punch, and Ice Punch. Another one of you guys also let me know that Sucker Punch means surprise attack in Japanese, which is probably why Pokemon like Hitmonchan can't learn it. There's also a ton coming from you guys, and I'll try to cover as many as I can in future videos. Ironically, the ghost type with no arms who can learn 4 punching moves cannot learn Shadow Punch. This one is for you anime fans out there. So the first season of Pokemon is exclusively Generation 1 Pokemon, right? Well, no. Ho-Oh appears in the very first episode, but there's another Generation 2 Pokemon in the first season of the anime that was introduced in episode 50 on June 25th, 1998, almost a year before Generation 2 was released, and it's Togepi. If Spoink stops jumping, it hard stops and it dies. Raichu was not supposed to be Pikachu's final evolution. In Pokemon Red and Blue, there's an in-game trade with an NPC who will trade you an Electrode for a Raichu. If you go through with the trade, the NPC will tell you that the Raichu evolved, indicating that Raichu's evolution would work in the same way that Machoke, Kadabra, and Graveler did. However, there's more. The creator of Pikachu, Atsuko Nishida, even confirmed that it was supposed to happen, and it was named Gorochu. Fan art exists of it, only the back sprite was ever made, but it was cut because Raichu was viewed as being strong enough already, and instead we got Pichu. While I was checking which Pokemon had the most world titles, I found something that I think is absolutely insane. We've all heard about how Sejon Park won the World Championships using a Pachirisu. It was even acknowledged in last year's World Championship introduction, but there's another. And I'd argue that this one makes even less sense than Pachirisu ever did. See, in 2010, a player by the name of Shota Yamamoto won the World Championships in the Junior Division using none other than Cherrim. That's right, Cherrim is a world champion and is even listed. And after a lot of researching, I did find footage of Cherrim in action, only for a few frames though. It took 17 years, 7 months, and 15 days from when Snorlax was first introduced to when it finally stood up on 2 legs in X and Y. Pikachurin. Pikachurin is a retinal protein that was discovered in Japan in 2008 and was named after Pikachu. Psyduck, Golduck, Magnemite, and Magneton are the only 4 Pokemon to appear in every single regional dex since the franchise began. And Psyduck was only added because it's Junichi Masuda's favorite Pokemon. The heaviest Pokemon is not Groudon, it's Cosmoem, at 2,204 pounds. In Generation 5, we got the GTS used to trade Pokemon. Several Pokemon were not allowed to be traded, such as Mythicals and at one point Legendaries. But joining them in being GTS banned was Skuntank and Cofagrigus, because the GTS had a filter to stop offensive language. Speaking of bans, Caterpie was banned in 2018 VGC because of the move String Shot. Because the move String Shot had a chance to freeze the game, forcing the game to require a reset. So it was banned so people wouldn't purposefully try to freeze their games. In the Battle Chateau in X and Y, Baroness Francine has a Flabébé that has the cry of a Floette for some reason. Pokemon stopped printing Kadabra and removed it from the anime after magician Uri Geller sued them for using his likeness. But he took it back in 2020, meaning that Kadabra is free to be used again. In Anastar City in Pokemon X and Y, an old man asks you to give him a level 5 or lower Pokemon to keep him company after his wife died. If you come back to visit him after beating the game, you come to find out that the old man has passed away. Where he used to be, there is now a Pokeball containing your Pokemon, alongside a note that thanks you for the Pokemon and apologizing he couldn't take care of it anymore. You get your Pokemon back alongside a comment shard. Oh, by the way, if you never give him a Pokemon to begin with and you beat the game and go to visit him, he is still very much alive. So technically, his blood is on your hands. The move Counter almost always goes last and dishes out double damage taken from a physical attack onto its opponent. However, there are only 2 physical moves that will never take damage from Counter, that being Dragon Tail and Circle Throw, because these moves actually have less priority than Counter and Mirror Coat. While we're on the topic of Counter, in Generation 1, Counter only works against normal and fighting type moves. Yet, Gengar can learn it, despite being immune to the only moves that affects Counter, making Counter useless on Gengar. The first Pokemon designed in Generation 7 was Jangmo. Pocket Monsters, the animation, is a novelization of the Pokemon anime. Of course, it was written by our beloved Takeshi Shudo. And what's funny about it is that it states that Primeape was the reason why Pokeballs were developed. Shigeki Morimoto is one of the designers for Pokemon, most well known for his work on creating Mew. He also designed Tauros. Furthermore, in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Morimoto has a cameo in the Game Freak office in Heihei City. And if you bring him a Tauros with the Game Boy Origin mark, he will tell you about how Tauros used to be one of the most powerful Pokemon in Generation 1, in part because he could learn Blizzard. And this is also true. Tauros was arguably the best Pokemon in Generation 1, not only because of Blizzard, but also because crits were based on speed, meaning that Tauros would crit damn near everything with an amazing attack stat. In Pokemon Crystal, when Claire tells you to go get the Dragon Fang after beating her, if you already have a Dragon Fang in your bag, she will refuse to give you the badge and accuse you of cheating until you actually go get it. Ken Sugimori, the lead designer for Pokemon, has often given designs to other artists if he believes that they can do a better job than him. However, in Generation 6, something happened that had never happened before. Sugimori encountered severe artist block on 2 specific Pokemon from the new games. And for the first time ever, he had to give the job to someone else, Yusuke Omura, because he couldn't figure out how to do it. And those 2 Pokemon were actually the box art legendaries, Xerneas and Yveltal, though Sugimori did help finalize the designs. This is Takao Uno, known for designing several fan-favorite Pokemon such as Infernape, Garchomp, Terrakion, Cobalion, and Virizion, alongside Arceus. Well, the guy who made all of this also designed Wishmer. Agatha, the Gen 1 Elite Four member, is classified as a Ghost-type trainer. However, that's not really true at all. I actually decided to do the math on this because why not? Counting all of Agatha's teams throughout the main series games, Agatha only uses 55% Ghost-type Pokemon, but 94% of her Pokemon are actually Poison-type. Furthermore, the only non-Poison type Pokemon that Agatha has used in the main series games are Alolan Marowak and Misdreavus. This one comes from a comment telling us the truth about Mega Evolution, because feeling immense pain when Mega Evolving is actually true. I mean, just look at the Pokédex entry for Scizor. It stores the energy from Mega Evolution. So after a long time passes, its body starts to melt. There's a lot more, but this one was pretty brutal, so I decided to cover this one. Cetitan has the longest cry of all Pokemon, coming in at a whopping 4.007 seconds. This one is just a little funny and ironic to me. Up until Generation 3 competitive Pokemon, Gengar never used the move Shadow Ball, but Snorlax did. This is because the physical special split didn't exist yet, meaning since all ghost type attacks were physical, Gengar had no use for Shadow Ball. But Snorlax did. In 2015, the lead designer for Pokemon, Ken Sugimori, stated that he really likes Flygon. As a matter of fact, he wanted to give it a Mega Evolution in Gen 6. However, his entire team ended up getting severe artist block, and all plans for Mega Flygon were thrown in the trash. But for all of you saying you wish Flygon had a Mega, it was supposed to happen. This is actually a double fact. In Pokemon Sword and Shield, if the player has no Pokeballs when prompted to catch Eternatus, a Pokeball will magically appear in the bag. But even more so, they really wanted you to catch this thing. Not just by making it a guaranteed catch and giving you a free Pokeball, but if you catch Eternatus with no space in your party or your PC, you will unlock an extra box in your PC just for catching it. Murkrow is the only Pokemon that can evolve with the Duskstone and not be a Ghost type. But also, even though Murkrow is a Generation 2 Pokemon, it cannot be found in Johto in Gold, Silver, and Crystal, and is only obtainable in Kanto. In the Generation 3 Pokemon games, there's an NPC in Sootopolis named Kiri, named after Zenitsu Masuda's daughter. In Pokemon manga, Mewtwo uses a giant spoon as a weapon, and I'm not making that up, it looks absolutely hilarious. Satoshi Tajiri is known as the man behind the creation of Pokemon, and his favorite Pokemon is actually Poliwag. He has also mentioned that the swirl on Poliwag's stomach is supposed to be its intestines. So now you know that. This is going to make people so mad. When it comes to Pokemon theories, I've often been asked to talk about how Ditto is a failed experiment of Mew. Same color, same shiny color, same weight, how Ditto can be found in the very building where Mew experiments took place. But here's the thing. As much as I love this theory, in a 2012 interview with Junichi Masuda, he was actually asked about this, and I will just read his reply. This is the first time I have heard about this. The unique thing about Ditto is that it's a Pokemon that can change forms, but each Pokemon we create with its own unique elements. So we just make sure that they're all individual life forms of their own. So there you have it. I'm sorry, but it doesn't look like Ditto is a failed experiment of Mew. Latios and Latias were the first legendary Pokemon to ever be assigned a gender. Lickitung did not learn the move Lick until Generation 2. In the Pokemon Red and Blue Beta, Kabutops was named Lantis, as a reference to Atlantis. In an interview with Masamitsu Hidaka, the anime director and storyboard artist, said that the creation of Tracy happened because they wanted to remove Brock, because they thought he would be viewed as a racist stereotype. Ash has 30 Tauros, and he even used one at the Orange League. But do you remember seeing Ash actually catching them? It's very weird because we all know Ash has 30 Tauros, but the vast majority of people never actually saw him catch them. That's because it happened in episode 35, The Legend of Dratini, which is a banned episode never shown outside of Japan, because the episode showed firearms. Brock also caught a Tauros in this episode, however, unlike Ash, his Tauros was never seen or heard from again. Some people speculate that the Tauros Brock caught actually belonged to Ash because it was his Safari Ball. The Trainer Tower in Fire Red and Leaf Green are known for having double battles, which is very rare in these games as they try to keep consistent with the original Red and Blue. But the tower, which is located north of Seven Island, also has 3 guaranteed shinies: Espeon, Seaking, and Meowth. However, they all belong to trainers and you can't catch them. This comment states that Oinkloin is the only Pokemon to have an ability exclusive to one of the gender forms, and that is correct. The female gets Aurora Veil, while the male version gets Lingering Aroma. This also made me think about the fact that Squawkabilly actually gets different abilities based on their colors as well. Another comment mentions that if you wallhack past the guard of the Soul Silver and Heart Gold Safari Zone, you will only encounter level 20 Rattatas. And again, this is also completely true, and I like that they also gave credit to Blue Boy Finn for finding this. He does a lot of facts videos similar to mine, so that's something you might want to check out. Pokemon Stadium 2 has shinies. They are just extremely rare to find. The Pokemon Stadium series is known for having Pokemon with different color palettes, but those are not shinies, they are based on the nickname of the Pokemon. Shiny Pokemon can only appear in Pokemon Stadium 2, and is recognizable by the sparkle that they give off upon entry into battle. Some of these shiny versions are actually very different from what they look like today, such as Espeon, which is typically lime green, but it used to look like this, which is way better in my opinion. In Generation 7, for a short period of time, there was a glitch that actually impacted competitive Pokemon. The glitch was involved with the move White Guard. See, if you were able to use White Guard on the same turn as your opponent used a C move, White Guard would do the same thing as Protect, allowing you to only take 25% damage from the C move, and it was in effect regardless of which target was hit. Mega Charizard Y, Infernape, Zygarde, and Kyogre all have one thing in common. They all have a lower attack stat than Krabby. This one actually came from a comment, and I'm always looking for facts in the comments, and I'll have more coming from you guys soon. This is a cool little Easter egg. In Ditto's Pokemon Gold Pokedex entry, it states that Ditto transforms into a stone when it sleeps. And in the new Pokemon Sleep game, Ditto does in fact sleep like a rock. There have been times where I have sadly made you guys feel really old. And well, this is probably my worst offense ever. Primeape was released in 1996. And it took Primeape 26 years, 8 months, and 22 days from its release to when it finally got an evolution in Scarlet and Violet, which I do believe is the longest any Pokemon have gone before getting an evolution. This is actually a Pokemon speedrun fact. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are very long games. However, the Any% world record is 14 minutes and 31 seconds. This is of course done through glitches, but it only works on the 1.1.1 version of the game. Any games updated past that will not work. Remember how I said you might have something really rare? If you have a physical copy of any of these games, and the back of the cartridge reads A001 at the end, and you never updated the game, Trust me, you have something really rare that speedrunners really wants to get their hands on. In Pokemon Red and Blue, just north of Lavender Town, there's an NPC that talks about how she wishes there was a pink Pokemon with a floral pattern. This description may have led to the creation of Mana in Generation 5. In a 1999 interview with Time Magazine, the creator of Pokemon, Satoshi Tajiri, revealed that for the past 3 years from the time of the interview, he would sleep for 12 hours and then work on his games for 24 hours non-stop. He stated that the irregular schedule helped him with video game ideas. Machoke was originally named Kung Fu, as a reference to the Kung Fu fighting style. I've already covered some weird Pokemon beta art, but one of the craziest ones is actually Beta Rayquaza, which looks completely different. Speaking of Rayquaza, Mega Rayquaza has achieved a ton of success in the VGC. However, regular Rayquaza sits at only 8 championship points, but an unlikely hero has more than that, and it's Magikarp. In the Australian Nationals in 2016, a player by the name Nicholas Bingham would actually place 6th using a Magikarp, which could only learn 3 moves at the time. In the Pokemon Red and Blue beta, Machamp was originally named Judo, as a reference to the Judo fighting style. Paras and Parasect are the only Pokemon with a 5x weakness, and it's fire, if it has the ability Dry Skin. Deoxys was the first Pokemon to have its own unique battle music in the games. The Mach Bike and Acro Bike from Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald is also coded into Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, but it cannot be obtained legitimately. However, if you were to obtain the bikes using a cheating device, it would work as a normal bike. Ash was not supposed to start off his journey with Pikachu. It was supposed to be Clefairy, but it was changed because Pikachu was more popular. Onix has a lower attack stat than Swirlix. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green has an anti-cheat. If you use an action replay to give yourself a Mew or a Deoxys, both Pokemon will refuse to obey you regardless of level, badges, or progression in the game. Pokemon Legends Arceus does not have abilities, right? Well, I mean they don't, except kinda. The only Pokemon that technically keeps their ability is Regigigas. However, instead of working as an actual ability, the game is coded so that Slow Start activates as a status condition, making Regigigas' ability both a status condition and an ability. Arcanine's Pokédex classifies it as a legendary Pokemon, despite not being a legendary at all. Well, you probably already knew that, but did you know it was supposed to have another evolution? This is Pooty. Pooty was found in the Gold and Silver demo from 1997 that was leaked in 2018, and it was supposed to be the baby version of Growlithe, but it was cut from the game. Kingdra's Pokédex entry in Pokemon Sword and Shield mentions Dragonite. However, Dragonite was not obtainable in Sword and Shield until the release of the Crown Tundra DLC. Marshadow is the only Pokemon in the anime to use a C move without an accompanying trainer. The term being a bad egg is often used to describe someone who is dishonest, untrustworthy, or rotten. Well, in Pokemon that might actually be the case. In Generation 3, if you use an action replay to do various cheats, a random egg will appear in your party called a bad egg. And if you have 6 Pokemon in your party when receiving it, one of your Pokemon will be removed from existence to make room for it. And it can cause your game to crash in various ways. Zacian, Mega Sceptile, Zeraora, and Mega Mewtwo Y all have one thing in common. They all have a lower base speed than ninjas. In Steven's house in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, Steven gives you Dive. However, if you beat the Gym Twins and then trade over a Pokemon that already knows the move Dive and simply beat the game without ever walking into Steven's house, you'll see something has changed. In the inside of Steven's house after beating the game, the house contains a Pokeball containing a Beldum. You might think that you simply miss out on getting Dive. However, if you beat the game this way, there will now be another Pokeball on the table, one containing Beldum and one containing Dive. If you take the box art of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Ultra Necrozma can actually be seen in the background in the middle. Mantike is the only Pokemon that requires a specific Pokemon in the party to evolve. That is, of course, if you don't count Shedinja as an evolution. In the Korean version of Pokemon Gold and Silver, the end credits are in English for some reason. This is a bit of a weird one. Pokemon Red and Blue, as you may know, were originally known as Red and Green. But Pokemon Green was actually removed in order to appeal to the United States, with Red and Blue being in the American flag. It sounds weird, but you can look it up, it's actually true. The Pokemon Company posted a Slowpoke themed Reggie music video onto their Japanese channel. It was later dubbed into English and is called the Slowpoke song. And I'll just end this video with some amazing Slowpoke tunes.
What's your story, Slowpoke? Slow. What's your story slowpoke. Every night you're the one dreams of waking with the sun, but
Arbok used to have a striped pattern on its back in Generation 1. The Korean and Japanese logos for Pokemon Sun and Moon has a sea crystal in it, which is something the English release never got. This is about to be a little bit crazy. Shigeru Miyamoto, who you might know from actually creating Super Mario, actually helped with the creation of Pokemon early on. Are you one of those people thinking to yourself, why on earth do we need two versions of the same game? Well, I'm here to tell you that the two games is a lot better than what he wanted to do. Miyamoto actually wanted to create 7 games, one for each color of the rainbow. However, his suggestion was cut down to 2, being of course Pokemon Red and Green. But that's also not a coincidence. Pokemon Red and Green were actually made because of Mario and Luigi. Pokemon Picross was announced in 1999, and this is the only known Pokemon game to be announced and developed without ever being officially released. Though in 2020, a ROM of the prototype version of the game was posted online, and it is fully functional from start to finish. This is actually so cool. So as we know, when Pokemon games were being made on the old Game Boy cartridges, there was a lot of cut content because it was hard to fit everything into the game. Pooty, which is the pre-evolution of Growlithe, is a great example of this. However, unlike Pooty, sometimes a Pokemon that got cut actually makes it back into the game. In a 2007 issue of Nintendo Power, Junichi Masuda stated that there was a Sea Slug Pokemon that they wanted to put into Ruby and Sapphire, but they couldn't. But then he said that they were able to put it into Diamond and Pearl, and that Pokemon can be none other than the 2-time world champion Gastrodon. And it is most likely that both Shellos and Gastrodon were originally made for Generation 3. And also, in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl's internal data, you can find these unused back sprites for both Shellos and Gastrodon. What's cool about this is that this might actually be leftover data from the Gastrodon and Shellos that we were originally going to get in Generation 3. The Pokemon Stadium games actually featured a kicking animation for Jynx, in which its feet appears out of nowhere, disconnected from its body. This is one of the very few instances where Jynx's feet can be seen in the games. Just like the Japanese and Korean version of Pokemon Sun and Moon, the Japanese and Korean versions of Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire has the red and blue orb associated with Groudon and Kyogre present in the ORAS logo, which again, the English release never got. Pokemon Emerald was the last time Nintendo issued a special colored cartridge for a game. And by special cartridge, we obviously mean cartridges that normally weren't mass produced, such as Ruby and Sapphire being Ruby Red and Sapphire Blue. However, if you want to be technical about it, you could say that Pokemon Black was the last time this happened, as that cartridge is indeed black. If you transfer the starter Pikachu from Pokemon Yellow into Pokemon Stadium, it will actually say its name just like in X and Y. And this also happens in Pokemon Stadium 2. Venusaur is one of Ken Sugimori's favorite Pokemon. However, Venusaur is also Ken Sugimori's least favorite Pokemon. He dislikes it because the design is very complex and difficult to draw. But he also loves the design. It's the perfect love-hate relationship. Pokemon Crystal was the last Pokemon game to use the catchphrase, "Gotta catch 'em all." In Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, you can catch both Articuno and Zapdos with only 2 badges. That's right, both the legendary birds are available after beating Misty. In Pokemon Emerald, there's a trainer on Victory Road that has a Lantern that knows Earthquake, despite Lantern not being able to learn Earthquake. Here's a bit of an anime fact. If we count only trainer battles, Ash's longest winning streak lasted a total of 87 episodes. This took place in Pokemon Journeys, starting with his loss to Rinto in the episode Trials of the Budding Master, until his loss to Misty in the episode A Faded Face-Off. Veronica Taylor, who voices Ash in the Pokemon anime, was interviewed in the documentary Adventures in Voice Acting, and she stated that during her audition for the role of Ash, he was actually known as Casey at the time. This name would later be given to, well, Casey, who was a reoccurring character from the Johto series. Here's how a silly tournament made for fun may have accidentally created a world champion. In 2015, there was a special tournament in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire called the Pikachu Cup. This tournament was an online double battle competition that only allowed the use of electric type Pokemon. However, there was a catch. If Pikachu placed in the top 3 most used Pokemon, everyone would get a Pikachu with an exclusive move. That move was Endeavor. You may have seen this move used most commonly on Pokemon like Rattata alongside Quick Attack and Focus Sash. Endeavor causes the target's HP to equal the user's current HP. So if you have 1 HP and you use Endeavor, your opponent will also be left at 1 HP. Endeavor Pikachu would turn into Endeavor Raichu, used to win the World Championship in 2016 when used by Wolf Glick. And this Raichu was actually built bulky enough to be able to use Endeavor, such as being able to take an Eruption from Primal Groudon, an Origin Pulse from Primal Kyogre. Raichu's Lightning Rod ability also allowed it to be perfectly paired with Kyogre. However, it lived on so low HP that these huge threats would be almost knocked out. Raichu of course also offered Fake Out support, Nuzzle support, and Volt Switch, and also being able to outspeed base 100 speed Pokemon. Raichu was a huge part of Wolf Glick's championship run, and it's crazy to think that the World Championship could have been completely different if it wasn't for some silly tournament. What went down on the 10th anniversary of Pokemon would probably not be believed unless there was video footage of it taking place. You see, in 2006, there was a national championship taking place on a big screen. This was before the age of what we now know as VGC, having different rules and formats. But the tournament itself is not what we're gonna talk about, even though it was a mess. It is a rabbit hole for another day. But that brings us to the part that most people would not believe. See, they decided to bring someone in to talk about the game and even do some live commentary of the tournament. So who was this mystery person that they decided to bring on? It was Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was at one point a competitive Pokemon commentator. And well, I'm just gonna end this video with some amazing Hulk Hogan Pokemon goodness.
Please give a big Pokemon welcome to Mr. Hulk Hogan!
I've been a huge fan of Pokemon since it began, and I'm really excited to be here. My son Nick is way into it. Wow, Pikachu, what's up, dude? I like those red and yellow colors. Those are my colors. You know, that could be gimmick infringement, brother, but that's okay. You're my buddy. I think Pokemon is so popular because it's pure entertainment for the kids. It's a very positive form of entertainment. It teaches them values and how to stay focused and team play. I think it's really, really cool that at a young age, kids like my son can get involved with Pokemon and keep those values all through their life because it is all positive stuff. All I can say is stay focused, guys, because it's game time.
All right, it's game time!
The powerful Mewtwo uses Protect to defend itself, and so does Kyogre.
Well, they're both using protection. That's awesome. Gosh, over.
Groudon fainted. Snorlax is...
Wait a minute, he used the body slam, brother.
But it missed.
That's awesome. You got Ice Beam. And it's super effective. That was an awesome attack. Oh, he goes for the body slam. And where's the referee? They keep going for that body slam. That must be the best move in the game.
It's when a Snorlax punches is so big.
He's rocking on his heels. Super effective.
You guys are fantastic.
I want to take you on a journey. A journey back to October of 2016 when one of the most incredible, albeit insane, and I mean that in a literal term, Pokemon battles in competitive Pokemon history took place. A battle that was so long you could watch the entire original Star Wars. Did I say the original Star Wars? Sorry, what I meant was the original Star Wars trilogy. This battle is so big that it is known to crash your browser when you try to open it. This all happened when the players ABR and Tele went head to head in one of Smogon's biggest 6v6 singles tournaments. This battle was pretty hyped up because both players were known to trash talk, and one of them was known for being a little bit more aggressive than the other. The start of the battle was relatively normal, but slow. Slow because Tele, the player on the right, is using a strategy called Stall. Stall is a strategy that doesn't focus on heavy damage through attacks, but instead residual damage through status conditions such as Toxic. However, on turn 29, Tele's Registeel goes down. Not much really happened after that, there's a lot of back and forth switching. In short, neither player had the damage output to deal with each other, until turn 30. Sorry, not 30, I meant 300. You see, to the untrained eye, it may look like nothing is happening here. It might just look like the movie adaptation of Storm of the Century written by Stephen King. 4 hours of nothing. But something was happening here. ABR was winning. You see, at this point, Tele has been using a lot of PP, and ABR's Skarmory has Swords Dance. Tele wanted numerous times to agree to a tie. The way ties worked back then is that both players had to agree to a tie. This was very normal if no progress was being made in the match. But when asked about the tie, ABR simply said that tie wasn't an option. At this point, there was a lot of trash talk going on. Now, I can't really show it because I'll probably get flagged down for offensive imaging. But of course, I'm here to break down what was said in a more appropriate manner. I want a tie. Okay. No. You're wasting everyone's time. Okay. Forfeit. I want a tie. Ask me in about 3 to 4 business days and I'll consider it. Fuck! One of the main reasons why Tele wanted a tie is because ABR already won game 1. And if Tele loses this game, he is out of the tournament. But Skarmory wasn't the only thing ABR had that was helping him. Even though Slowbro was poisoned, it had the ability Regenerator, allowing it to heal back whenever it switches out. Yes, you guessed right, the player using stall is being PP stalled. Hundreds of turns later, on turn 1185, ABR was able to read a Zapdos switch in and hits it with an Ice Punch. Though not enough to knock it out, it gets a freeze, allowing Skarmory to later go for Swords Dance. And at this point there's something very important to mention. For one, Zapdos had no more heat waves, and it was about to run out of discharges. Zapdos also paralyzed the Skarmory, meaning that Mew couldn't burn it anymore. And after a bunch of switches and Swords Dances, after 1,287 turns, ABR wins the match, making it one of the craziest matches in history. And I didn't even get to see all Pokemon be knocked out! This later changed the rules of ties, which, well, you can guess why. I know it's a little different from what I normally do, but I've wanted to talk about this for a long time. So I hope you enjoyed. 10 facts about Pikachu. Sorry for no videos in a little while. I've been sick for almost a week and I decided to start off a little bit easy now that I finally have my voice back. So let's do 10 facts about the mascot of Pokemon. But first, shout out to those of you who knew the answer to the bonus image of the AI quiz. I will admit it looks more like Sunflora, but it is actually Yellow Flabebe. And I think only one person actually got it, so that's pretty cool. Now let's get on with the facts. Number 10. Pikachu was designed by Atsuko Nishida. Number 9. However, Gigantamax Pikachu, or should I say Big Thick, was designed by James Turner. Number 8. Not very much is known about Atsuko Nishida's personal life, as she is kind of a private person. In fact, she is so private that in a 2018 interview, alongside Koji Nishino and Ken Sugimori, she spent the entire interview hidden behind a giant Pikachu plush. Number 7. Pikachu is Ash's only electric-type Pokemon, and was the only electric-type owned by a main character in the anime prior to Dawn catching Pachirisu. Number 6. In the Japanese-only version of Pokemon Stadium, Pikachu is the only usable Pokemon that is not fully evolved. Number 5. Nishida also confirmed that Raichu was not supposed to be Pikachu's final evolution, and that she designed a final evolution called Gorochu. However, only the back sprite was ever made. But there is some great fan art of Gorochu, but instead we got Pichu. Number 4. Since Pikachu hates being inside of its Pokeball, the Pokeball is very rarely seen. As a matter of fact, there's only been a total of 6 confirmed appearances throughout the entire anime outside of flashbacks. Number 3. Pikachurin is a retinal protein discovered in 2008 that was named after Pikachu. Number 2. You people remember Fat Pikachu, right? Well, the reason why Pikachu had to drop all the weight was, according to Ken Sugimori, because it made it easier to animate Pikachu. Number 1. Pikachu was originally based on a creature made out of a Daifuku, which, I kid you not, is a form of Japanese rice cake, which Nishida confirmed in an interview. So that's 10 facts about Pikachu, and let me know in the comments which Pokemon you would like for me to cover next. So you want 10 facts about Zoroark? Let's do 10 facts about Pokemon's Master Evolutions. Number 10. Both forms of Zoroark were actually designed by Atsuko Nishida. Number 9. Hisuian Zoroark is the only Ghost Normal type to ever be introduced in Pokemon. Number 8. With that being said, Hisuian Zoroark is also the only Pokemon to be immune to both of its typings. Number 7. Zoroark was first revealed by Junichi Masuda as a silhouette in the February 7th, 2010 edition of Pokemon Sunday. Its full image was later revealed revealed in the March 2010 issue of CoroCoro. CoroCoro being a Japanese magazine that usually covers toys, and it was revealed 7 months before the release of Gen 5. Number 6. However, there's more. Even though we now know that Sarua evolves into Zoroark at level 30, pre-release information from the CoroCoro magazine suggested that Sarua would evolve into Zoroark using a different evolution method. What this method might have been, or if it was even true, is unknown. Number 5. Several of Zoroark's Pokédex entries also states that if you try to catch Zoroark, it will trap you in an illusion and punish you. Number 4. The name Zoroark is a combination of the Spanish name for fox and dark, a dark type fox. Number 3. Zoroark is most likely based on the Kitsune of Japanese folklore, a shape-shifting mythical fox that would trick unsuspecting travelers for fun. Number 2. When Zoroark turns itself into a human, it is capable of human speech. Number 1. In the Zoroark movie, during the scene where Celebi revives Zoroark, remade versions of the Voice of the Forest melody from Celebi the Voice of the Forest can be heard. So that's 10 facts about Zoroark, and let me know in the comments which Pokemon you would like for me to cover next. So you want 10 facts about Wobbuffet. Let's do 10 facts about our favorite blue punching bag. Number 10. Wobbuffet was designed by Hironobu Yoshida. Number 9. Wobbuffet has the highest base HP of all psychic types at 190. Number 8. There is a big chance that Wobbuffet is actually not just based on a punching bag, but it might also be based on a Japanese comedian, Sanpei Hayashiya, who was known for touching his head in the same way that Wobbuffet does. Number 7. In Generation 3, if 2 Wobbuffets face each other in a single battle and both of them are holding leftovers, the battle would become endless, because they cannot hit each other until they use the move Struggle. However, this doesn't work because leftovers will heal the damage and recoil taken from Struggle, and both of them would be stuck because of the ability Shadow Tag. Number 6. Because of this and other factors, Wobbuffet was the first non-legendary Pokemon to be banned from competitive OU and sent to the Ubers category in Gen 3. Number 5. Wobbuffet was named by Jeff Callis. Number 4. In the anime, Wobbuffet was the first traded Pokemon to become part of the main cast, when Jessie traded her Lickitung for it. Number 3. In the anime, Jessie cannot tell the difference between counter and mirror coat, and commonly only tells Wobbuffet to counter the attack, leaving Wobbuffet to do what he wants. Number 2. Wobbuffet spent 511 consecutive episodes as a member of Jessie's party Pokemon. Number 1. With that being said, aside from Pikachu and Meowth, Wobbuffet has appeared in the most episodes of all Pokemon, with 722 episodes. So that's 10 facts about Wobbuffet, and let me know in the comments which Pokemon you would like for me to cover next. You want 10 facts about Mew, too. That's a nice play on words, so let's do 10 facts about the fan favorite, adorable Mew. Number 10. Mew was designed by Shigeki Morimoto. Number 9. Mew was supposed to be designed by Ken Sugimori. However, Sugimori didn't find enough time to do it, so Morimoto, who is actually a programmer, just made the design and put it into the game himself 2 weeks before the game was supposed to be released. Number 8. Adding to that, which is kind of hilarious, Game Freak knew about Morimoto adding Mew into the game, but this was a last-minute decision, and nobody actually told Nintendo about it. Not until the Mew glitch was discovered, and they were, well, pretty pissed off. Number 7. This is some early artwork of Mew, and it's, well, terrifying. Number 6. Shigeki Morimoto actually loves Mew so much that he includes a drawing of it in his signature. Number 5. The very first Mew event was distributed from April 16th, 2005 to May 8th, 2005. Number 4. Not counting the movies, it took over 20 years and 981 episodes before Mew physically appeared in the main series anime, in the episode Enter Pikachu. Number 3. Mew was the only Pokemon out of the original 151 to be left out of the Pokerap. However, this was probably done because Mew had not been announced outside of Japan at the time. Number 2. Despite Mewtwo being a clone of Mew, it appears before Mew in the Pokédex. Number 1. However, there might be a very logical reason for that. As Morimoto revealed, Mew was created very late in the development of the games. Mewtwo was actually created first, and Mew was created to look like Mewtwo, with a more simplistic design so that it would be easier to fit it into the game's cartridge. So that's 10 facts about Mew, and do you have any other Pokemon that you would like for me to cover next? Let me know. 10 Pokemon facts about Meowth. That's right, today we're gonna go through 10 facts about Meowth. Number 10. A long time ago, I mentioned that the nation of Niue, thank you all for correcting me on how to pronounce it, released a coin to promote the Pokemon franchise, which was a legal form of currency. A Meowth coin was also part of this promotion. Number 9. Every single version of Meowth was designed by Ken Sugimori. Number 8. In the episode Go West, Young Meowth, which is the origin story of Meowth in the anime, it is stated that the Meowth from Team Rocket had to learn how to walk on 2 legs like a human, indicating that Meowth typically cannot walk on 2 legs. Number 7. However, even though it is indicated that Meowth cannot normally walk on 2 legs, the only time Meowth is depicted walking on all 4 legs in the games are in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, when you put Meowth at the front of the party. Number 6. Meowth was the first Pokemon in the anime to talk. Number 5. Even though Meowth was the first Pokemon to talk in the anime, he's also one of the only ones that does so without using psychic powers. But furthermore, he cannot understand Pokemon not from this world, such as Deoxys and Ultra Beasts such as Ash's Poipole. Number 4. Aside from Pikachu, Meowth has appeared in the anime the most out of all Pokemon, with a whopping 1008 episodes. Number 3. Meowth claims that he cannot learn Payday, as this was the price he had to pay in order to learn how to speak, using up all of his smarts doing so.
I hate water, especially wet water.
Number 2. Team Rocket uses a lot of costumes as disguises throughout the anime. However, the most used disguise by Meowth is the Sunflora costume, which he has used a total of 7 times. Number 1. Meowth is the only known Pokemon to ever have the title of Gym Leader, briefly sharing the Gym Leader spot with Jesse and James to fill in for Giovanni. So that's 10 facts about Meowth. And do you have a favorite Pokemon or a Pokemon of choice that you would like for me to cover like this? Let me know in the comments. So 10 facts about Psyduck. Why not? Let's do 10 facts about one of our fan favorite comic reliefs from the anime. First, an honorable mention, because I didn't have time to look through 26 episodes of the anime. To the best of my knowledge, Psyduck is the first Pokemon to be caught unintentionally in the anime. But I can't verify this, but maybe you people in the comments can. Number 10. For a 3rd time in a row, Psyduck was designed by Ken Sugimori. He's designed a lot of Pokemon, what can I say? Number 9. Despite Psyduck's name potentially being short for Psychic Duck, and several of its Pokedex entries stating that it has psychic powers, neither Psyduck or Golduck are Psychic type. Number 8. Despite having duck in its name, Psyduck is also based on a platypus. Number 7. Psyduck is the only Pokemon to be featured in every artwork of the Tropical Mega Battle and the World Championship participation cards. And these are all of the cards. Number 6. It took Misty's Psyduck 942 episodes before it was seen properly performing Water Gun, which is the longest any Pokemon owned by a main character has taken to master an attack. Number 5. Psyduck is one of only 4 Pokemon that has appeared in every single regional dex since the beginning of Pokemon. The other 3 being of course Golduck and Magnemite and Magneton. And the last time I mentioned this, I swear I had about 50 people telling me that I forgot about Pikachu. I didn't forget Pikachu. Pikachu is not in the Unova Dex. Number 4. But the reason why Psyduck appears in every single regional dex could be because it's actually Junichi Masuda's favorite Pokemon. Number 3. This is the first Psyduck card ever made. And though it's not a fact in itself, the fish in the background has been speculated to be an early drawing of Tatsugiri. Number 2. If you register all 151 Pokemon into the Hall of Fame in Pokemon Stadium, you will receive a prize Psyduck that knows the move Amnesia, which it normally couldn't learn until they just gave Psyduck Amnesia in Generation 4. However, the Psyduck also came with a held item, either a normal box or a gorgeous box, which was an item specifically made for the Generation 2 games. That would give you either a gold or a silver trophy, depending on the box. Number 1. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest, if you know about this, you know about it. But if you didn't know about this, it's gonna sound like complete nonsense. But trust me, this is actually completely true. Psyduck was actually considered to be one of the starter Pokemon in the Let's Go games. Junichi Masuda revealed that there was a plan to create Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Psyduck, but the idea was scrapped. And the reason why it was scrapped is because both Pikachu and Psyduck are yellow, so Eevee got chosen instead. So that's 10 facts about Psyduck, and do you have a favorite Pokemon or anything from Pokemon you would like for me to cover like this? Let me know. I've seen a ton of suggestions coming from you, and I'll do my best to cover most of them, but some of them require a little bit more research than others. So you want 10 facts about Haunter? Well, let's have Haunter step out of the shadows of Gengar and give it to you. Number 10. Let's start off easy. Haunter was designed by Ken Sugimori. Number 9. Haunter has gone through the most change of almost all Pokemon. Haunter's cry has changed a record 3 times in Generation 2, 3, and 6. Also, Haunter originally used to have 3 fingers and a thumb, though it now has 3 fingers total. Number 8. In the Pokemon Red and Blue Beta, Haunter's name was originally Spectre. Number 7. Speaking of Haunter's name, its Japanese name is the exact same as the Japanese name for ghost types. Number 6. Haunter is the only ghost type Pokemon featured in Pokemon Snap. Number 5. Haunter is the only Pokemon that weighs the exact same as its pre-evolution Ghastly. Number 4. Furthermore, Ghastly and Haunter are the lightest poison types in Pokemon, but they are also tied with Roaming Gimmighoul for the lightest ghost type Pokemon. Number 3. We gotta get some anime stuff too. Haunter is Ash's first unofficial Pokemon. However, Sabrina and Ash both claim that Ash caught it in the Haunter vs. Kadabra episode, implying that it was officially his, despite never catching it. Number 2. The Haunter line, consisting of Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar, are the only dual ghost poison types in the Pokemon games. Number 1. I saved my favorite Haunter fact for the end. Gengar has been incredible in competitive Pokemon, winning and participating in several huge tournaments. However, there was one time Haunter stepped out of Gengar's shadows to win an official regional championship. In Generation 7, Gengar lost its ability to levitate, but Haunter didn't, and an Australian player by the name of Tony Nguyen, I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm so sorry, decided to use Haunter for this specific reason, and he actually won the whole thing, meaning Haunter is also regional champion. So that's 10 facts about Haunter, and do you have a Pokemon of choice or a favorite Pokemon you would like for me to cover? Let me know in the comments. So you want 10 facts about Mewtwo? Let's do 10 facts about this absolute menace to society. Number 10. As usual, Mewtwo was designed by Ken Sugimori. Number 9. The Pokemon coin distributed in Niue to promote the Pokemon franchise also included a Mewtwo coin. Number 8. Mewtwo is depicted on the door of Bill's lighthouse in the episode Mystery at the Lighthouse, despite only being seen by its creators. Number 7. In Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, wild Mewtwo's are programmed to always be holding a Berserk gene. But since Mewtwo cannot be found in the wild in those games, the item cannot be obtained that way. Even if Mewtwo was found, the item would be consumed immediately, so it still wouldn't be obtainable from Mewtwo. The Berserk gene is an item that was introduced in Generation 2 that doubles the attack of a Pokemon upon entry, but it also confuses the Pokemon. Number 6. Mega Mewtwo Y was designed by Tomohiro Kitakase. Number 5. One of Mewtwo's moves in Mewtwo Strikes Back is Shadow Ball, but it had not yet been introduced in the games at the time. Number 4. Mewtwo has won a regional championship. Number 3. In one of the Pokemon Mansion journals, it states that Mewtwo's birthday is February 6th. Number 2. Mega Mewtwo Y was the first Mega Evolution ever revealed to the public. Number 1. Originally, Mewtwo was planned to return in Genesect and The Legend Awakened, but the idea was scrapped due to the character being considered the property of Takeshi Shudo's estate, as he had already passed away at that point. As a result, a different Mewtwo was created to star in the movie in its place. So that's 10 facts about Mewtwo, and let me know in the comments which Pokemon you want to see next. So 10 facts about Snorlax. Let's do 10 facts about Mr. Eat, Sleep, Repeat. Number 10. Snorlax was designed by Ken Sugimori. Number 9. In the Pokemon Stadium games, Snorlax opens its eyes when it faints, and it is nightmare fuel. Number 8. Snorlax also stands up on 2 feet and dances in Pokemon Snap whenever the Pokeflute is used. Number 7. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, if the player has a Snorlax following them and you interact with Snorlax while on Mount Silver, the message Snorlax is feeling very eager will appear. This is because Red, who is also at Mount Silver, also has a Snorlax. Number 6. Snorlax is Ash's only Pokemon to have his Pokeball broken. Number 5. This is probably the most hilarious Snorlax fact I have ever seen. Ken Sugimori revealed that Snorlax is actually based on Koji Nishino, who is one of the game designers for Pokemon, and I am not making that up. Number 4. Snorlax was the heaviest Pokemon for the first 2 generations, but it doesn't even reach the top 20 heaviest Pokemon anymore. Number 3. Snorlax can eat anything, even if it's poisonous, and it never gets an upset stomach. Number 2. In 2023, Pokemon started a campaign called Project Snorlax. Project Snorlax aims to present the cuteness, coolness, and loveliness of Snorlax. Number 1. I saved Snorlax's success in the VGC for last because goddamn, Snorlax has earned an impressive $122,000 in prize money. Snorlax has won 18 regional championships, 2 national championships, and it won the World Championship in 2009 and 2018. So that's 10 facts about Snorlax, and let me know in the comments which Pokemon you want to see next. As I've said before, some Pokemon take a little longer than others, but I'm doing what I can to get to all of them. You want 10 facts about Ken Sugimori? I actually agree, let's do 10 facts about the best video game designer from our childhood, and I must say, there are some awesome facts. Number 10. Ken Sugimori was born January 27th, 1966, in Tokyo, Japan. Number 9. Before working as a game designer, Sugimori was actually a manga artist. Number 8. Sugimori was actually one of the founders of Game Freak, alongside Satoshi Tajiri and Junichi Masuda, which means he has been around Game Freak longer than Pokemon has existed. As a matter of fact, Sugimori worked as a designer for Yoshi in 1991 and Mario vs. Wario in 1993, both before Pokemon Red and Blue. Number 7. With that being said, the first video game Sugimori ever worked on was Mendel Palace, a puzzle game made for the NES. Number 6. Sugimori has designed the most Pokemon out of everyone. Of course. Number 5. But with that being said, throughout all of his time designing Pokemon, he's only ever encountered artist block once, which really speaks to how creative and talented he actually is. The artist block happened in Generation 6 with the release of Pokemon X and Y, and the 2 Pokemon he was unable to design were none other than the box art legendaries Xerneas and Yveltal. Number 4. Ken Sugimori has also designed more Pokemon cards than anyone else. Number 3. Many believe that Sugimori created all original 151 Pokemon, but that's actually not true. It is true that he finalized the designs, but there are several Pokemon from Gen 1 that are not made by Sugimori. The most popular one being Pikachu, which was actually designed by Atsuko Nishida. Number 2. Ken Sugimori's favorite Pokemon is Gengar, but not for the reason you might expect. Though Gengar is a very popular Pokemon, Sugimori loves it for a very specific reason. It's easy to draw. He's also a very big fan of Venusaur, but he hates it because of how difficult it is to draw. However, as a relevant side note, in an interview with Sugimori in the year 2000, he revealed at the time that his favorite Pokemon was actually Hoothoot, but his favorite Pokemon today is Gengar, to the best of my research. Number 1. This is the most awesome thing I could find while researching Ken Sugimori. There exists a character in the Pokemon anime that is extremely likely to be based off of Ken Sugimori. The Japanese name of the character is Kenji, and it's actually a very difficult character to guess off the top of your head. But once you realize who it is so glaringly obvious. The character Kenji is known in the English version of the anime as Tracy Sketchit. So that's 10 facts about Ken Sugimori, and do you have a character, Pokemon, or a theory that you would like for me to cover? Let me know in the comments and I'll do my best. The Missing No glitch. Probably the most famous glitch within all of Pokemon. But the story of how it became known is also incredibly interesting. In this video, I will tell you about the discovery of the glitch, but before I do, you should know what the glitch is and a little bit about how it works. The glitch in itself is actually very easy to execute. Go to Viridian City and talk to the old man. After he finishes his battle with Weedle, fly directly to Cinnabar Island and surf on this side of the island. And that's it. That's how the glitch is performed. But here's a very simplified explanation of what is happening. When you talk to the old man in Viridian City and he has his battle with Weedle, the event is scripted and not a cutscene. And during this, the old man's name gets put as your trainer name. Because the game cannot have 2 trainer names at once, it moves your trainer name to a memory slot in the game that is not needed at the time. And in this case, your trainer name is put into the memory that stores wild Pokemon. But after the Weedle battle, the wild encounter memory is not updated, because there are no Pokemon that can be caught in Viridian City. And when you fly to Cinnabar Island, there is also no wild Pokemon to be found, meaning that the data still does not update. However, due to a mistake, the surfing tiles on the right side of Cinnabar Island has a chance to produce wild encounters. So when you surf up and down Cinnabar Island, the game reads it as you being on Cinnabar Island, where there aren't any wild Pokemon. causing your game to glitch and give you invalid Pokemon based on your trainer name. This causes the game to produce things such as Pokemon above level 100, Pokemon you normally cannot find in the wild, glitched trainer battles against Professor Oak, amongst others, and of course, Missing No, which when you encounter Missing No, it will also give you 128 of the item that you have in the 6th slot of your bag. So if item number 6 in your bag is the Master Ball, you now have over 100 Master Balls. What makes the Missing No glitch stand out is that it doesn't appear to be discovered by a player at all. Pokemon Red and Blue were released in 1998 and the Missing No glitch was first reported in 1999. With this being in the late 90s, the glitch was and still is very complicated to understand. So how was it discovered only a little over a year after the game's release? Well, it's because the people that reported the glitch were none other than Nintendo themselves in the May 1999 release of the magazine Nintendo Power. But why on earth would Nintendo do that? Glitches and exploits exist within every game. No game is perfect, but most publishers and developers do not want any attention drawn to these things. Simply put, if a game has a lot of glitches and exploits, it can be viewed as a bad product. But Nintendo went out of their way to report a glitch seemingly before anyone else even knew it existed. Imagine Super Mario 64 being released in 1996, when we all thought you needed at least 70 stars to beat the game, only for Nintendo to come out in 1997, a year later, and tell everyone about the backwards long jump? On the surface, it doesn't add up. But there's one big key difference between glitches like the backwards long jump and Missing No. You see, I didn't tell you the whole story about the Missing No glitch. When the Missing No glitch is performed, it can and most likely will cause serious problems. You might corrupt your save file and even the game itself crashing entirely. Nintendo actually covered the Missing No glitch in a serious attempt to tell people not to do it, which in my experience only leads to more people doing it. And as a funny side note, as much as they didn't want you to do it, they still did not remove it from the 2016 re-release for the 3DS. But it still makes for a good story. The top 10 highest earning Pokemon in the Pokemon Video Game Championships. Some Pokemon has stood the test of time and been strong ever since its introduction. And of course this video will be a little bit longer than usual, but I refuse to do part 2s because you deserve to get everything at once. Number 10, Tapu Lele. Total earnings $153,250. Tapu Lele is a 20-time regional champion and a 5-time national champion. Mostly being used with the Choice Scarf, Tapu Lele would set Psychic Terrain upon entry alongside an amazing 130 special attack, allowing it to fire off strong Moonblasts. It also saw the use of a normally not used move in Magic Room. Magic Room would lower the damage taken based on items such as Choice Bands and Choice Specs, making Tapu Lele a serious threat. Number 9, Xerneas. Total earnings $165,750. Xerneas is a 28-time regional champion and a 3-time national champion. Xerneas has not been viewed as a top-tier competitive Pokemon for quite a while, but in Generation 6, it was a complete powerhouse. Using the item Power Herb alongside Geomancy allowed it to double its special attack, special defense, and speed. Though it may seem very risky, it was almost always paired with Choice Scarf Dark Void Smeargle. Being able to put one or often both of your opponent's Pokemon to sleep allowed Xerneas to safely set up Geomancy. There's only one way to deal with Geomancy Xerneas in Gen 6. You simply don't. And it is surprising that Xerneas never won a world championship. Number 8. Kartana. Total earnings $185,000. Kartana is a 22-time regional champion and the 2018 world champion. 181 base attack and a great physical move pool. With Stab Leaf Blade with an increased crit chance and a beast boost to increase its attack upon every knockout, I don't really have anything else to say. This thing has always been incredibly strong. Number 7. Fluttermane. Total earnings $197,250. Fluttermane is a 12-time regional champion, 2-time national champion, and a 2023 world champion. Fluttermane is what made this video difficult, as I wanted to cover the top 10 best Pokemon in VGC statistically, but the championship points and prize money has changed over the years. You may be surprised to see Fluttermane on this list, and you might also think it's unfair just because of how early it is, but Fluttermane has been dominating dominating in the Scarlet and Violet VGC, with a great stat distribution and amazing coverage moves. Number 6. Tapu Fini. Total earnings $222,750. Tapu Fini is one of the most successful Pokemon within the VGC. It is a 21-time regional champion, 2-time national champion, and a 2-time world champion in 2017 and 2019. Tapu Fini is an amazing support Pokemon. It has incredible bulk and offers great supporting moves such as Heal Pulse, Light Screen, Icy Wind, Nature's Madness, and Haste, and the occasional taunt, alongside a great ability in Misty Surge. Misty Terrain allows it and its allies to be immune to status conditions such as Paralysis and Spore from Amoonguss. Number 5. Landorus Therian. Total earnings $235,750. Landorus is a 19-time regional champion and a 3-time national champion, and a 2-time world champion in 2015 and 2023. All honesty, this was my pick for number 1. Despite being 4 times weak to Ice, Ice never truly settled as a strong playstyle, meaning that most Pokemon hitting Landorus with an Ice-type move was through hidden power. With an amazing attack stat and Stab Earthquake alongside U-Turn and Rock Slide, with a 91 base speed made it perfect as a Choice Scarf Pokemon. And it doesn't hurt that aside from being quad weak to Ice, it has an amazing typing, and probably the best ability in the game with Intimidate. Number 4. Arcanine. Total earnings $267,250. Arcanine is a 30-time regional champion and a 5-time national champion. It was only a matter of time before a Gen 1 Pokemon showed up, but Arcanine is not here because it's been here for a long time. It's just that good. Of course, also having access to Intimidate, good overall bulk, and access to a +2 priority E-speed, and other great moves like Helping Hand, Snarl, and Will-O-Wisp. Arcanine was absolutely amazing in the 2017 VGC, at its best being on 80% of all teams. Number 3. Tapu Koko. Total earnings $278,500. Tapu Koko is a 23-time regional champion, 5-time national champion, and a back-to-back world champion in 2017 and 2018. Even though Tapu Koko has a higher attack stat than its special attack, it's almost always used as a special attacker. And it was most commonly used in Generation 7 as a C-move Pokemon. With an incredible 130 speed, it also allowed it to slow down opposing threats using Electro Web. And its ability Electric Surge meant that it gave immunity to sleep while it was active, also giving a 50% boost to all electric type moves, making Tapu Koko a serious offensive threat, with Thunderbolt, Stab Dazzling Gleam, and Volt Switch. It was also one of the few Pokemon that sometimes used to move Skydrop, but that's a whole nother video in itself. Number 2. Amoonguss. Total earnings $333,500. Amoonguss is a 29-time regional champion, a 5-time national champion, and a 3-time world champion in 2013, 2015, and 2023. Amoonguss is not an offensive Pokemon, but what it does better than anyone else. With 100% accurate Spore, Rage Powder to redirect attacks, and Pollen Puff to heal your allies or to hurt your opponents, whichever one you want. It could also be seen running Foul Play and Clear Smog, and with good bulk, it was able to deal with Pokemon trying to set up against it or use it against them, while still being one of, if not the best support Pokemon out there. Number 1. You knew this was coming. Incineroar. Total earnings $435,000. Incineroar is a 45-time regional champion, a 6-time national champion, and a 3-time world champion in 2018, 2019, and 2022, leading the charge with over $100,000 more than second place. There really isn't much to say. Just like Arcanine, it has great bulk alongside Prankster immunity through its dark typing. Once again, also one of the best abilities of all time with Intimidate. If you hate it or love it, it does not matter because it's a Pokemon that is known for being broken, with moves such as Fake Out, Snarl, Parting Shot, Knock Off, U-Turn, with the ability to fire off a powerful Flare Blitz, makes it a serious contender for the best Pokemon in VGC history. So you want 10 facts about Vaporeon. Let's do 10 facts about the Pokemon I am the most nervous about covering. Don't ask me why, because no. Number 10. Vaporeon was designed by Atsuko Nishida. Number 9. In Pokemon Yellow, Vaporeon is programmed to learn both Haste and Mist at level 42. However, because of a bug in the game, it prevents Pokemon from learning more more than one move at the same level when leveled up. The only way Vaporeon can learn Mist is if it reaches level 42 in the Pokemon Daycare. Number 8. In Generation 1, Vaporeon had a completely different design. The backs of its ear being all black, fins on each leg, and a fin running through the entire length of its back. All of these details were removed in Generation 2. Number 7. Vaporeon is the only evolution that does not share a weakness with any other evolution. Number 6. Vaporeon has actually had quite a few different shiny forms. Normal shiny Vaporeon that we know today is of course purple, while in Pokemon Stadium 2, it has green ears and a much darker color. But its Colosseum shiny has more of a grayish color, but still some purple. Let me know in the comments which one of these you think looks the best. Number 5. Atsuko Nishida's words on what Vaporeon is based on is actually a little bit complicated. Vaporeon is partially based on a mermaid, which you can see on its tail. But it's also taken inspiration from dolphins, and surprisingly enough, its ears are based on a fennec fox. Number 4. Here's one for you TCG fans. Have you ever seen this card? Because if you know about this card, you are a real Pokemon fan. This Vaporeon card does not exist. Well, kind of. This card was never released because it was made exclusively for the trading card game for the Game Boy Advance. But even more interestingly, Pokemon released the Pokemon Card official book in the year 2000, featuring every single Pokemon card until the release of the set Neo Genesis. And this card is for some reason included in the book, despite never being released. Number 3. Vaporeon may also be based on the Teleshines from Greek mythology. Number 2. Vaporeon's Japanese name is Shavasu, which when directly translated means shower. Number 1. In Pokemon Colosseum, Vaporeon has a snow-like visual effect surrounding its body in battle. No other Pokemon in the series has this effect, and the reason for why it has it is unknown. We don't know. So that's 10 facts about Vaporeon, and let me know which Pokemon you would like for me to cover next. However, I can't stress enough that although I'm trying to get to every single comment, some Pokemon take a long time to research. I want to provide you with good facts, and certain Pokemon doesn't have all that much trivia about them, and they will therefore take longer. So you want 10 facts about Alakazam? Let's do 10 facts about one of the biggest brains in all of Pokemon. But first, shout out to the few of you that knew the answer to the bonus image of the AI quiz. It was actually Slowpoke. I actually based the bonus image off of something I read on Bulbapedia. Slowpoke may actually be based on giant salamanders. Number 10. To the best of my research, Alakazam was designed by Ken Sugimori. Number 9. In Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Alakazam is the same height as Ethan, the playable male character in the game. Number 8. Alakazam has the highest special attack of all non-legendary Pokemon. But also, Mega Alakazam has the highest speed stat of all Mega Evolved Pokemon. Number 7. In Pokemon Red and Blue, if your opponent sends out an Alakazam while your Pokemon is at low health, Alakazam will have the same cry as a Ghastly for some reason. Number 6. Prior to Generation 4, Alakazam's competitive moveset was very weird. As previously stated, Alakazam is a special attacker, but the most commonly used moves on Alakazam back then were Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, and Fire Punch. This is because the physical special split didn't exist yet, so all the elemental punches were actually special attacks. Number 5. Alakazam's German name is Simsala, which is a reference to Simsalabim, which is a phrase often used in stage magic. And its Japanese name, Fudin, might be a reference to Houdini. Number 4. Kadabra is based on a spoonbender, and magician Uri Geller sued Pokemon for using his likeness, and Kadabra was banned from the TCG for over 20 years. However, Alakazam is also based on a spoonbender, but it was never touched. Personally, I know why. Kadabra only has one spoon while Alakazam has two, so he couldn't sue Alakazam because Alakazam simply did what he did, but better. Number 3. Mega Alakazam might be based on Sadhus, which is a holy person in Hinduism and Buddhism. Number 2. Female Alakazam has a smaller mustache than a male Alakazam. Number 1. Alakazam apparently has an IQ of 5,000, and it has so much knowledge stored in its head that it uses psychic powers to keep its head up. Alakazam has the brain power to build a full-scale rocket out of tinfoil, and he could probably travel to a distant planet and create new intelligent life forms with a children's chemistry set, while I struggle to make a microwave burrito. But we are somehow still its master. So that's 10 facts about Alakazam, and which Pokemon would you like for me to cover next? Let me know in the comments. Magikarp almost became a national champion. And today I am here to tell you that story because it seems like nobody else is covering this. But before we get into that, a shout out to everyone who knew the answer to the bonus image of the AI quiz. It was Relicanth. July 2nd, 2016, the Australian National Championship, where a player by the name of Nicholas finished 6th place out of 267 players with a Magikarp. For those of you that have played competitive Pokemon, you probably know how hard it is to make a great team. Deciding on the perfect 6 Pokemon to work together, the right items, finding the perfect 4 moves, the right EV spreads, the countless hours of damage calculation, the tedious breeding while you struggle not to cave in for an easy fix. Some people spend days, even weeks, building the perfect team of 6. But every now and then, we see something unusual happen. A player winning with a Pokemon that to the naked eye makes no sense. In 2014, Sejun Park of course won the World Championship with the Pachirisu. In 2010, in the junior division of the Pokemon World Championship, we saw Shota Yamamoto win it all with a Cherim. And of course, 2016, when Jamie Boyd used a Cottony to win a regional championship. And it is when things like these happen where I am left to ask the simple question of how. But after 10 plus years of watching VGC, for the first time I realized that I am asking the wrong question. I tried to reach out to Nicholas a long time ago for his input, and sadly he never got back to me, but I feel like I have made a logical assumption of what actually happened. You might think that there is some sort of crazy plot twist where Magikarp just rises from the depths of hell with all 6 Infinity Stones to rain hellfire upon your neighborhood. But no, it's just a Magikarp. The question of how is actually very simple. Nicholas never aimed for a perfect 6. He aimed for a perfect 5. His team was a double Mega team featuring Mega Kangaskhan, Mega Salamence, Smeargle, Xerneas, and Primal Groudon. From all of the videos that I watched from his time in the tournament, he never once actually used Magikarp, and that's because he never intended to. The question as to how this happened is very simple. Nicholas is a great player with a great team of 5 who had a great performance on the big stage. He never used Magikarp because he never intended to use it in the first place. The true question we need to be asking ourselves is not how, it's why. The truth is, based on my research, Nicholas bringing Magikarp was never about winning. It was about sending a message! Okay, no, but in all of reality, Nicholas was simply playing the game the way video games was intended to be played. For fun. He brought Magikarp because it was funny. And I've seen nobody else cover this, and I feel like this is one of the greatest stories out there. Even though he didn't win, he did something that nobody has done before, and nobody has done since. Which I think is absolutely amazing, and it deserves a video. So you want 10 facts about Raichu. Well, we haven't done a top 10 facts in a while, so let's have Raichu step out of Pikachu's shadows for a little bit. Number 10. Both Raichu and Alolan Raichu were designed by Atsuko Nishida. However, the idea of Alolan Raichu actually came from Masafumi Nukita. Number 9. I know I've mentioned this multiple times before, but it's relevant to the video, and one of you recently left a comment talking about it. Atsuko Nishida revealed that Raichu was supposed to have an evolution named Gorochu. Ken Sugimori stated that there was nothing wrong with the Pokemon or the design in itself, but the game would have been more balanced without it. And because cartridge space was also very limited, Gorochu was never put into the games. Number 8. Raichu appears in every single regional dex, except for the Unova dex. Number 7. Raichu seems to be based on a Jerboa, or a kangaroo rat. Number 6. Raichu's Fire Red and Pokemon Sun Pokédex entries discuss Raichu's electricity being able to knock out an Indian elephant. However, in Pokemon Legends Arceus, this was changed to Copperajah, which is based on an Indian elephant. It's pretty genius. Number 5. Speaking of Raichu's Pokédex entries, several Pokédex entries claim that Raichu can discharge up to 100,000 volts. However, in Pokemon Stadium, it claims that it can only discharge up to 10,000 volts. But this is most likely a translation error, due to the way numbers are read in Japanese, where 100,000 literally reads 10,000. Number 4. Alolan Raichu is the only regional form Pokemon to have its own exclusive C-move. Number 3. Alolan Raichu is also the only Psychic Electric type Pokemon. I actually did my research this time. It is the only one, okay? I did my research this time. Number 2. Raichu is a 2-time regional champion and won the VGC World Championship in 2016. Number 1. Many people believe that Alolan Raichu is based on Surfing Pikachu, most notably how Pikachu uses a surfboard when it uses Surf in Pokemon Stadium. However, it might actually be a reference to Raichu itself. Pikachu may use a surfboard when using Surf in Pokemon Stadium, but Raichu actually uses its tail as a surfboard in the same games, just like Alolan Raichu. So that's 10 facts about Raichu, and let me know which Pokemon you would like for me to cover next. I am, as always, trying to get to everyone, but these videos require a lot of time and research, and I hope you understand. So you don't think I can do 10 facts about Zeraora? Well, I believe I can, so let's do 10 facts about Zeraora. But I want to start off with a bonus one, because I just found out after researching, this sounds really weird. Did you know Zeraora doesn't actually have a tail? Kind of. And I know what you're thinking. Like, come on, we can see its tail. It's right there. But it's actually connected to its back. I didn't add it to the list because I'm not a scientist or a biologist by any means. I can't tell you if this counts as a tail or not, but it's weird regardless. Number 10. Surprisingly, I can't tell you who exactly designed Zeraora, but I can tell you that the most commonly used Zeraora artwork was designed by Ken Sugimori. Number 9. Zeraora is the only electric-type mythical Pokemon. That is, of course, if you don't count Arceus holding a set plate. Number 8. In the Pokemon movie, The Power of Us, Zeraora's story, it is said that Zeraora was created in an explosion caused by a lightning strike hitting the mouth of an erupting volcano. Someone should totally make a Zeraora design where it's actually a dual electric and fire type, and if someone does, please tag me in it. Number 7. With the release of the same movie, Pokemon released a special Zeraora promotional card titled Zeraora and Friends. However, this card was only released as a jumbo card. Number 6. Zeraora seems to be based on, or at the very least, take inspiration from tigers and other cats. But it is also possible that Zeraora is based on the Kanahekili, the Hawaiian god of thunder. Number 5. On April 26th, 2018, Pokemon released a special battle video for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, version 1.2. With the use of a code, players had the option to watch a battle featuring Zeraora, or they could have a battle against it before its official release. Number 4. Pokemon also had another event for the Isle of Armor DLC in Pokemon Sword and Shield, where Zeraora would appear in max raid battles. Not only is this the only time a mythical Pokemon has appeared in regular raid battles, but though Zeraora itself was not catchable, if the players were able to defeat Zeraora 1 million times, everybody would be given a shiny Zeraora through Pokemon Home. Let me know in the comments if you took part in this and if you still have it. Number 3. Zeraora was first revealed on April 9th, 2018 on an episode of Onasuta, which is a Japanese breakfast show for children. Number 2. Zeraora's signature move Plasma Fist is one of the very few signature moves that only one Pokemon can learn. The only reason it is not considered a true signature move, such as Chatter for Chatot, is because this thing exists. But not counting Smeargle, Zeraora is the only one that can learn this move. Number 1. Zeraora cannot produce electricity in the same way other electric-type Pokemon do. Most electric-type Pokemon actually has an organ that produces electricity, but Zeraora simply doesn't have one. Instead, Zeraora produces electricity by using outside sources of electricity and using it as its own, using its paws. So that's 10 facts about Zeraora, and which Pokemon do you want me to cover next? Let me know. So you want 10 facts about Slowpoke? I agree today, let's do 10 facts about one of the most carefree Pokemon out there. Number 10. To the best of my research, Slowpoke was designed by Ken Sugimori. Number 9. In the Pokemon Red and Blue beta, Slowpoke's name was actually Slowmo. Number 8. This is one that I have covered before, but it is related to Slowpoke, so here you go. In 2014, the Pokemon Company released a Slowpoke-themed Reggie song dedicated to Slowpoke. This song would later be released in English in 2015, and it is titled The Slowpoke Song. Number 7. This is pretty wild, but Slowpoke has never, as of this video, been seen performing an attack in the anime, at least according to Bulbapedia. Number 6. Slowpoke is the only Pokemon with a branched evolution, which means that it can evolve into multiple different Pokemon, where both forms have identical typings to one another, but a different typing than its pre-evolved form. Number 5. Slowpoke seems to be based off of hippos and giant salamanders. Number 4. Galarian Slowpoke Slowpoke actually has a different cry than a regular Slowpoke. But for some reason, this difference is removed in Pokemon Go and Pokemon Home. Number 3. The Japanese and international releases of Pokemon Silver actually had different sprites for Slowpoke. Most notably, in the Japanese version, Slowpoke is, well, he's a bit chubbier, with a striped stomach, similar to Slowbro and Slowking. The stripes on its stomach is still partially visible in all of its gold and crystal sprites, but it's unknown why it was removed. Number 2. Several of Slowpoke's Pokedex entries states that Slowpoke lacks a response to being bitten on its tail. However, in Pokemon Snap, Slowpoke is shown to respond very quickly when being bitten by a Shelder. Some believe that this is because Shelder's venom actually causes Slowpoke to have a quicker reaction. Number 1. Slowpoke is one of the only Pokemon that we know has been consumed by humans. More specifically, its tail, which is considered a delicacy, which it sounds very weird to say that for some reason. So that's 10 facts about Slowpoke, and let me know in the comments which Pokemon you would like for me to cover next.